Hello, everyone. Glad you guys are taking some time to join us as we go through the book of Nehemiah. We're going to be looking at chapter 2. We've already gone through chapter 1 and part of chapter 2, seeing this man Nehemiah and the incredible leader that he was and the leadership lessons that we learned. So Nehemiah was living in Persia. He had heard that the city gates and the walls of Jerusalem were destroyed, and it broke his heart. He cries out to God. And we saw that he not only prays, but he acts on his prayer, right? He has faith. He acts on what he is asking God to do. And then God opens doors. And when he asks big, right? And God, because he's asking, God is continually providing for him. So all of the supplies, everything that he needs to go back to Jerusalem, rebuild the walls, have all been provided for him. We also saw that Nehemiah was a man who was in the right place at the right time, for the right job, because he was continually hearing God speak. He wasn't just asking things that he wanted. He was asking what was on the heart of God. He was asking in response to what God was revealing to him. So when he asked, he received. But the reason that he was in that position is that God placed him where he needed him to be. And because Nehemiah was a man who heard God and responded to God, it got him to a place where he could be used to do something great for God. So let's pick it up right there in chapter 2, verse 11. Nehemiah has now returned. He's arrived at Jerusalem, and so we're going to begin reading right there in chapter 2, verse 11. So I went to Jerusalem, and after staying there 3 days, I set out during the night with a few others. I had not told anyone what my God had put on my heart to do for Jerusalem. There were no mounts with me except the one I was riding. By night I went out through the valley gate toward the jackal well and the dung gate, examining the walls of Jerusalem, which had been broken down, and its gates which had been destroyed by fire. Then I moved on toward the fountain gate and the king's pool, but there was not enough room for my mount to get through. So I went up the valley by night, examining the wall. Finally I turned back and re-entered through the valley gate. The officials did not know where I had gone or what I was doing, because as yet I had said nothing to the Jews or the priests or nobles or officials or any others who would be doing the work. Then I said to them, "You see the trouble we are in. Jerusalem lies in ruins, and its gates have been burned with fire. Come, let us rebuild the wall of Jerusalem, and we will no longer be a disgrace." And I also told them about the gracious hand of my God on me and what the king had said to me. And they replied, let us start rebuilding. So they began this good work. But when Sanballat the Horonite, Tobiah the Ammonite official, and Geshem the Arab heard about it, they mocked and ridiculed us. "What is this you are doing?" they asked. "Are you rebelling against the king?" I answered them by saying, "The God of heaven will give us success. We, his servants, will start rebuilding. But as for you, you have no share in Jerusalem, or in any claim or historic right to it." So one of the first things that I want to bring out here, another lesson that we learned from Nehemiah, is the importance of timing and of communicating vision. So he knows what he's gone there to do. He knows why he is going. He's already expressed that to the king. But when he arrives, he doesn't tell anyone right away why he's there, right? So he says that, I didn't tell anybody else why I had come. So the importance of communicating your vision, your heart, what God has put on your heart, whether it's your family or at church or at work, the timing is so vital. Because you can communicate something that you're excited about and tell everybody in the world, right? He could have been telling everybody who he met and came across, but it would be too soon. They weren't ready. They didn't understand. They didn't see the big picture. And they didn't have it, because they were living in the middle of the ruined cities, and they seemed to be fine with it. So understanding, okay, I know what God has put on my heart, but when do I say it? What is the right timing? And even if it's in conflict or talking to someone else, where you're going on vacation, whatever it is, there's a timing, there's a moment that is better for communicating. So let me give you an example. Not too long ago, many of you from the church here at Syracuse know that we just hired Reggie in April. He started as our community director of transformation, community transformation. Well, I met Reggie in October, November of last year, and heard his story, and immediately thought, man, I would love to recruit this guy. I would love to bring him on board. But telling him that too soon would not be wise. And even myself, I wasn't sure. Just because I had the idea doesn't mean I should be saying it. So then, we kept talking. I kept looking for opportunities to get together with him so that I would know, hey, after talking with this guy, do I still feel like this is someone I want on my team? And after those conversations, I did. So then I invited he and his wife. But if I went right to my elders, right to them and to the church and said, hey, what do you think about this? It was, again, premature. I hadn't thought it through. Everything wasn't in place, and nobody really knew him except me. So we invited him over to our home where there was a lot of other people at a dinner we had in December. And then in January, I invited him to speak, still not saying anything to anyone else outside the church except for my wife. Invited him to speak, and then people got to hear him and listen to him and hear what God is doing in and through him. And then after all of that, then I brought it up and I said, let's look at this possibility. Is this something that you think that the Lord might be leading us into? And by that point, again, the timing was crucial. If I would have mentioned it 2 months earlier, it would have been premature. It would have been the wrong timing, and it could have been dead in the water. It could have never happened. So, or if it did happen, it could have been a lot harder. So the timing with which you communicate things, even if it's on your heart, and you believe that it's the Lord leading you, you still need to communicate that to others in the right timing. So that's what we see with Nehemiah here. And another lesson that we get from chapter 2 is that Nehemiah, when he arrives, and before he says anything, he starts to assess the situation. He wants to know exactly what he's facing, right? He wants to see the damage, to know exactly how bad the situation is. So one of the things we learned that leaders need to be brutally honest. You can't be surrounded by people that are just going to tell you what you want to hear, always hearing good news. You need people that will tell you, and you need to be willing to accept the brutal facts. Let me read you a couple of quotes from the book Good to Great by Jim Collins. He talks about Winston Churchill in the Second World War. And Winston Churchill in the Second World War, I mean, that was talking about a challenge, talking about a fight that they had, and they were under attack. And, Winston Churchill said, we will fight them by sea, we will fight them in the air, we will with God's help, we will rid the earth of his shadow, right? And so he has this vision. We're gonna, no matter what it takes, we're gonna win this war. So to do that, he developed a department called the Statistical Office, and its principal function was to feed him continuously updated and completely unfiltered the most brutal facts of reality. He said, I had no need for cheering dreams, he wrote. Facts are better than dreams. So, it's the need for the leader, and for the Christian to be honest with ourselves, to be honest with everyone, to really say, okay, this is what's going on. This is the battle that our city is facing. This is the battle that our community is facing. This is the battle that my children are facing. Be brutally honest with what they're facing, and what you're facing, what the challenge is before you, without losing hope. In that same book, Good to Great, he mentions Admiral Jim Stockdale, who was the highest-ranking United States military officer in the Hanoi Hilton, prisoner of war camp during the height of the Vietnam War, tortured over 23 times during his 8-year imprisonment from 1965 to 1973. This is a very important lesson. You must never confuse faith that you will prevail in the end, which you can never afford to lose, with the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of your current reality, whatever they might be. So someone had asked him, what was the difference between you and those who lost hope? And he says, well, we all had faith, we all had hope that we would get out, but those who were not willing to face the brutal reality that, hey, we have hope that we'll get out, but right now we're a prisoner of war. Right now we may be here for years, and he was 8 years in a prison camp. But he was willing to face the facts of his current situation without losing hope that they would make it out. So Nehemiah does that, right? Nehemiah goes in, He knows how important timing is, and when to communicate what God has put on his heart in the right way, right? To communicate that vision. And also to know before you communicate it, you need to know your stuff. You need to know exactly what it's going to take, because people are going to ask questions. Well, how are you going to do it? And what's going to happen? And when is it going to happen? Have you seen the damage? He can say, yes, I did see the damage. And here's the plan. And here's how we'll do this. And here's how we'll do that. Because he went and surveyed and examined the challenge that was before him. Sometimes we jump into stuff, right? We see something, we see a challenge, and we run into it without adequately examining exactly what it is that we're facing and developing a plan and a strategy that will accomplish the goal. Right? So that's what Nehemiah does. It's all in here. So that's Nehemiah chapter 2. Tomorrow we'll get into Nehemiah chapter 3. And the plan that he starts to implement as they're rebuilding the wall. So can the Lord bless you. Like and share, comment things that you like about chapter 2, and let's just keep that communication and that post and everything going. All right. So God bless you. Have a great day. See you next time.